Laura Ingraham Show.
Well, first of all, you're always going to put me in a good mood when you're playing the Beatles on a Monday morning. Thank you, James. Trump was, I thought, really darn good on 60 Minutes. How many of you saw it? I did. Drew reminded me of it. I completely forgot that he was going on 60 Minutes. They taped it on Friday, I guess. Leslie Stahl did it. And she's like, what about the Trump brand? Oh, that's peanuts. We're talking about the country. Oh, my gosh. I think a lot of folks' hearts skipped a beat when they heard that, because that's what public service is all about. It's putting your own self-interest in the back seat, and putting the country in the front seat. By the way, has Obama or Hillary come out and told the protesters to go home yet? Did I miss that? Because I was in Connecticut over the weekend. Drew was swooshing down the slopes for his birthday. Hey, James, when you think of skiing, does the two words Drew Carmichael come to mind? Skiing from
I'm going to go with no.
Alabama.
There wasn't a lot of snow, Lars. There wasn't much skiing going on.
First of all, Alabama's going to Colorado for his 25th birthday. First of all, Drew, this is now the last birthday you can make a big deal about until you hit 50.
It was the last one.
Oh my gosh. First of all, your generation has got to get over birthdays. It's like, oh, it's my birthday. Who cares? After 21 is like your birthday. It's like, oh, it's my birthday. No, well, I'm happy birthday, but come on. He went off. Well, he said he was going to be skiing, but where were you, Breckenridge?
I was in Breckenridge. There wasn't a lot of snow.
Any snow at all?
A little bit. You had to go really high up
Corn
there.
snow?
Yeah, fake snow. Yeah.
And then Drew's he puts little wheels on the bottom of the skis going down woo, it's fun. So I was totally in the dark because I was visiting my uncle who's 89, my father's only remaining sibling. My father passed away a couple of years ago, so we're visiting him. What a joy to give that experience to my kids, to get to know their great uncle. He's just a phenomenal person, and just think about it. We take it for granted if you can still walk and you walk out of a room, and we forget. Every time you drive by an elderly facility, think about the people who can't walk out of there and they don't have the freedom to get in a car and just drive to the store. I mean, folks we were visiting with was just like, oh, you're so lucky you can walk and go. And go to a restaurant or just walk in the woods. We remember when we used to do that. Oh my God, just makes you grateful for every day, and also the beauty of life at every stage. And my uncle's struggling, but boy, he still puts a big smile on his face. And of course, Nico is spilling M&Ms all over the floor. I'm like, what? Here's a place where you don't want to spill M&Ms over a slippery floor with elderly people. Is the elderly facility where my uncle was. So I said, Nico, go around and see if any of the folks would like some candies. But make sure, I told Maria, it's make sure that the kids that the folks can, you don't want them to aspirate on the M&Ms, but you got to be careful. I mean, Nico, have one, and someone's choking. So Maria went with them. And I said, whatever you do, don't spill the cup of M&Ms. I put them in a plastic cup. Okay. Within, I'd say 3 minutes, I could hear them scatter across the linoleum floor.
How else could it happen?
Over the linoleum, and he comes in crying. It's Maria's fault. I'm like, oh God, that was kind of this. That's kind of the tone of the weekend, but it was really fun. We had a great time. So it's a long-winded way of saying I was in a news blackout. And I'm going to tell you about Frank Capenas, who is also a dear friend, who was 96, 20-year Navy veteran, World War II, sharp as a tack, can't see. He's in a wheelchair, can't see, but what a great human being. I just want to hang out with kids and old people. They're the best. It's all of us in the middle that are screwed up. The old people and the little kids I'm telling you, they have the beautiful spirit, beautiful heart, and wisdom. With that, let's just close out the show. No, okay. So I was in a news blackout, so I forgot that Trump was on 60 Minutes. And I'm thinking, taping an interview with 60 Minutes, could be a little, a lot of people would just avoid that. Right off the bat, he decides to sit down with Leslie Stahl, knowing that, Leslie Stahl's probably voted for Hillary, and most of the people at 60 Minutes probably don't like Trump all that much. But nevertheless, I thought it was a really nice interview. He talked about Well, he talked about whether the election was a repudiation of the Obama presidency, and I kind of wanted him to come out and say, well, of course it is. But he's trying to be magnanimous to Obama. But we'll hear what you have to say about it.
Do you think that your election is a repudiation of his presidency?
No, I think it's a moment in time where politicians for a long period of time,
both parties,
have let people down. They've let them down on the job front. They've even let them down in terms of the war front. You know, we've been fighting this war for 15 years.
This was the message of your campaign.
We've spent $6 trillion in the Middle East. $6 trillion. We could have rebuilt our country twice. And you look at our roads and our bridges and our tunnels and all of and our airports are like obsolete. And I think it was just a repudiation of what's been taking place over a longer period of time than that.
For all of you who wanted him to say, you bet it was, Obama, we're rolling back everything. Think about how smart that answer is. Now, why is it smart? Because he's laying the blame at the feet of both parties where, frankly, it belongs. It's not just the Obamas and the Clintons he beat. He beat the Bushes. He beat the Chamber of Commerce. He beat the moneyed interests that funneled hundreds of millions of dollars into Jeb, into Rubio, into Hillary, into all these people, into Kasich, thank you very much, to all these candidates. He beat all of them. So for him to just come out and say it's a repudiation of Obama, yeah, but it's a repudiation of politics as usual, where the same people run the show, win or lose, whether they fail as consultants, they keep getting rehired, whether their commercials the previous election cycle were terrible, it doesn't matter. Someone like a Mike Murphy will still get paid $10 million. Well, Mike, you've lost the last 3 elections. Hey, it doesn't matter because, and it's a repudiation of all. It's a repudiation of the media. It's a repudiation of the pollsters. It's a repudiation of most of the pundit class, with the exception of a few of us. And so for Trump to come out and say, no, it's really the people were let down. I kept getting like ping, 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 ping. My phone is going up going, are you watching this? And like, and then I know some people are saying, well, where was this guy during the campaign? If he did this the whole time, it would have. No. The only way to have taken out the Clintons is to have played the same rough politics that they played. And remember, they called Trump inhuman. They said that Trump was a racist. Oh, Paul Ryan did too? Oh, yeah. Okay. Paul is a racist, sexist, misogynist, stupid, inciting violence. When it was the Hillary people that were paid, the Robert Creamer, who was in the White House 250 times meeting with Obama, was that thug that was encouraging the violence at the rallies. They said he wouldn't accept the election results and that he would try to delegitimize Hillary Clinton if she became president. What happened? They don't accept the election results. They send their people out on the streets. They have AstroTurf protesters who are paid probably, I don't know, $10, $15 an hour to show up and hold their pre-printed signs. That's what they do. Okay? Trump actually is acting gracious, magnanimous, and putting it on the line about whose responsibility this all is and how he's going to move forward to clean it up. So, all the folks out there who are, he said this. Oh, he's put this person. He put Reince Priebus here. Take a breath. Let it out. That's what that woman at the rental car place told me once when I was getting a little antsy. Raymond always does that impersonation of her. I think it was Budget, the person at the Budget. I want to hire her. She was hilarious. I said, well, we got to get our car in the next hour. Take a breath. Let it out. Everyone needs to take a breath and let it out. Reince Priebus was selected for chief of staff. Steve Bannon, chief strategist, senior counselor to the president. I'm not an expert in staffing, the positions, who's, what, where. But I can tell you, both individuals have done fantastic work for this ticket. Steve Bannon is a brilliant strategist and, when necessary, warrior. And he's relentless. You're going to need someone who's relentless, tireless. He sleeps maybe 2.5 hours a night, maybe 3 hours. I don't know how he does it. He's got to get more sleep. He's relentless. He's exceedingly smart. He's with Trump on all of the issues of nationalist economic issues, populism, on the foreign policy. He's with him on all of it. Okay? Priebus has all the connections to the Hill, and I know what the concerns are. I get it. And at first, I had some of the same concerns. I understand. Well, this is McConnell's way of getting in the White House. Okay, let me just say this. Here's what you're going to have in the White House, I guess. I have no inside information about it, but this is what I imagine is going to be in the White House. It's going to be Bannon. It's going to be Kellyanne, both brilliant, phenomenal conservatives. It's going to be Steve Miller, who is the guy who put together all these speeches and is the policy guru and brilliant beyond his 30 years. Steve Miller. It's going to be Dave Bossie. I'm guessing that these people are all going to be, but I have a pretty good sense that that's a core group of people. Bossie's been around for decades in Washington. He knows, what the pitfalls are. He's really good at messaging. That's a pretty impressive group of people just right there. Then you got the Jason Miller, you got Hope Hicks, who's been a complete loyal soldier in this fight. Reince Priebus, from what I think they all get along really well. I've seen them together. They are all like working hand in glove. It doesn't mean there's not going to be tensions. It doesn't mean there's not going to be tensions. It doesn't mean there's not going to be some problems. But I think that's a pretty smart grouping of people. And I can tell you this, you're not going to get a better group of conservative fighters in that White House than the people I just laid out. I mean, I know pretty much everybody. I can't think of really any, maybe a couple of people I could think of to be in there, but that's pretty darn impressive. So I was impressed with this interview. We'll dip in and out of it during the couple hours that we'll be dealing with this just particular first interview of Trump's. We're going to talk to Conrad Black. He's going to be joining us. He was, oh my God, they were ridiculing him in Canada. He has been so ahead of the curve on Donald Trump, it's not even funny. So we'll talk to Conrad about what this means. And by the way, Trump was pressed on the wall because a lot of people think, oh, no, that was just a talking point. He's not going to do it.
Are you really going to build a wall?
Yes.
They're talking about a fence in the Republican Congress.
Sure.
Would you accept a fence?
For certain areas I would, but certain areas the wall is more appropriate. I'm very good at this. It's called construction. But
so part wall, part fence?
Yeah, it could be. There could be some fencing.
Yeah, well, guess what? The double fencing that they have right near the San Diego border is one of the most successful barriers ever constructed, separating two countries. It's a double fence. I did a piece for for CBS News, years ago. This is back in like 1996. I was with the Border Patrol down there in San Diego. It's I think it's called Operation Gatekeeper down there. Check. I think it is. Yeah. I can't believe I remember that. That's frightening. I'm like one of those people who remembers weird things though, and then I don't remember other things. Is that a sign of a problem? I don't know. But anyway, this is very cool. The interview was interesting. Did you watch, and what did you think? And I'm sorry that Pretty Boy couldn't hold it together last night. I'm really sorry about that. That Gronkowski, and he's Polish like I am, so I do have a soft spot for Gronkowski. He tried to pull that ball down in the end zone, and Pretty Boy was all upset that the ref didn't make the call. The call was the right call, okay? You dropped the ball, and it was great coverage. New England lost. By the way, Alabama won.
No Trump! No KKK! No racist USA! No Trump! No KKK! No racist USA! Not my president! Not my president! Not my president!
When they demonstrate against you and there are signs out there, don't you say to yourself, I guess you don't, do I have to worry about this? Do I have to go out and assuage them? Do I have to tell them not to be afraid? They're afraid.
I would tell them, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. We are going to bring our country back, but certainly don't be afraid. We just had an election.
Fools out on the street. Drew said they're going down his street every night. You know what it is? It's a pub crawl. It's like a pub crawl with a cause. Well, it's kind of like just. Do they stop at the bars, Drew? Do they when they are going down your street? it's kind of like a pub crawl, I think. You guys know
exactly.
what a pub
It's
crawl
more
is?
like a social
It's
event.
like a
You're
party.
right.
Yeah, you just hang out. And, hey, how you doing? Good. Saw you there last night. What's going on?
The annoying thing is they block traffic, they cause confusion, they do all these type of things, and I don't really know what's going on with them. But they don't even know the agenda. We've got things falling in the studio here.
A big thing just fell down. Thank God that didn't fall on my head. Do you see that? I mean, we had
This is just padding, soundproofing.
No, that's heavy, Drew. If that thing fell on my head, how is that? My gosh,
we've got plenty of space in here for you.
They need to use the hairspray that they put on my hair at Fox to stick that to the wall. That would stick and never come off. That stuff, that was. Remember when Michael Jackson, that big thing exploded on his head? That was sad. Remember he got those burns because the stuff fell. That was what I was thinking about there. But I digress. So we got all these protesters. What is their chant? Hey, hey, ho, ho.
Not my president. Not my
but it's
president.
like. Can you play it again? Because it's so unimaginative. Can you hear?
No Trump, no KKK, no racist USA, no Trump, no KKK, no racist
Okay,
USA.
yeah. Oh, I wonder how long it took them to write that. Do you think it took them a long time? Maybe Usher came up with that, or John Legend, or Streisand.
Yeah.
People who need to move to Canada. She needs to go. All these people, they can just leave if they're so unhappy. Just come back in 4 years when you think Nirvana is going to befall the United States.
Those of us who've been disgruntled conservatives who have watched the last successive tsunami in midterms and such, where Republicans were given majorities in both chambers and did little with it, this was no surprise to us. Also, and since the media is saying this about themselves, I drive to my kids' school in upstate New York through rural Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York. Trump signs everywhere. You just have to get out of the bubble and you have to quit listening to yourself. People are really hurt.
People are hurting. Jay, one of our producers, was in, where were you, Michigan over the weekend, Jay? Yeah. He went to a friend's wedding. Jay, get on the mic and tell us where you were. And Jay noticed this. Your classmates are already getting married. Isn't that traditional at UVA? I love it. So where were you exactly?
So I was up in Wayne, Michigan, not Wayne County, the small town called Wayne.
And what was it? You noticed what? You're driving through a number of these towns on the way to the wedding, and what did you see?
There's just a lot of empty buildings, a lot of foreclosures, and there was a big plant in Wayne, Michigan. It was the plant that makes all the Ford Focuses, and it's one of the plants that was going to move down to Mexico. And my Uber driver, who's lived in the area all of his life, said that it's reconsidering moving to Mexico because of Donald Trump's election.
That's interesting. So you get out of the Beltway, you get out of Washington, you actually see America. Michigan voted Trump. They've seen what the policies of globalization and open borders and all the brilliant elites over the last 3 decades have said, this is going to be great for us. China and the WTO, it's all going to be great. It's going to work out. They're going to get freer in China. And it all turned out to be, for the most part, a big lie. We lost millions of jobs and our wealth went overseas. And people are tired of it. So I thought the Trump interview on 60 Minutes last night was pretty impressive. I thought he was good. I think the family was good. I'm not sure I would have even done that interview, but, well, he did it, and it came out pretty well. Conrad Black, of course, is a member of the House of Lords, author, former newspaper publisher. He has been out front on this Trump phenomenon for, I don't know, as long as I have been. And he's taken a lot of grief for it from all the right people in Canada, but also he's done a lot of stuff on National Review. So when National Review was totally going never Trump, Conrad was one of the few voices of reason writing in National Review, and he joins us now. But Conrad, I have a question. Are we in a no gloat zone, Lord Black?
Canadians are quite modest, and so are the British. So gloating isn't. I'm not as good at it as some people in your country, including the president-elect. So I think that there's a general feeling amongst responsible people, which of course is not everybody, but we're trying to put everything back together again and civilize relations between people who were long not only civil but friendly, but have had a rending parting of the ways over this campaign. So I think a down emphasis, a de-emphasis of gloating would be in keeping with a general lowering of the atmosphere of vituperative rancor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that said, I thought it was a bit rich, that I was on one of your programs with Fried Zakari yesterday, and one of the people on the panel started raving on about how Donald Trump should be doing more to placate those who are throwing projectiles at the police and smashing windows and things in a few places in the U.S. over the election. And, I suggested that since Hillary Clinton just a week before was saying that Donald's comments on what he would do if he thought the election was rigged were a threat to democracy, it might be up to her to suggest, since her followers were throwing projectiles at the police, that they stop doing it.
Well,
but I don't want to gloat. I'm appalled at the extreme and completely unjustified nature of the smear job on Donald Trump. I understand why some people don't like him. Nothing wrong with that. But for the president to say he's a friend of the Ku Klux Klan, I was on with David Remnick yesterday, the editor of the New Yorker.
Oh, God.
And he was just raving and foaming at the mouth about how, for me to say that Donald Trump wasn't a racist and wasn't a sexist, and of course he isn't either of those things, that this caused him to think he was hallucinating. I mean, I don't know why they're all so worked up. And you've had a very lively election. There were no incidents at the voting places. The system works as it does. A verdict has been arrived at by the voters. And in all of the elections I've followed, going back to General Eisenhower and Governor Stevenson, you accept the results.
Well, to hear the frenzy and the frothy denial on the part of some of these Democrats on television, it's embarrassing. I mean, it's really embarrassing.
I think Harry Reid's performance, and I could never stand him anyway as Senate leader. I thought he was always essentially corrupt and obstructive, and you couldn't believe a word he said.
Never.
On any subject. But for him to announce that it is now up to the president-elect to do the necessary to settle things down, as if Donald Trump was the chief author of all the of all the epithets and purple allegations have been hurled about. I just don't know where it all ends. Fortunately, it ends soon enough with him leaving Washington. Surely, goodness, no one will listen to him once he's gone back to Nevada.
Let's talk about the media, Conrad, because you wrote your piece. Most recent piece, I think, was how the free press, supposedly free press, failed, and finally the triumvirate of the royal political families, the Bushes, the Obamas, and the Clintons, are felled by this outsider candidate, and none of these poltroons saw it happening. What do we need to take away from this? The media mea culpas that we're hearing about, we got it wrong and we're going to be better and we're going to be more connected to the people. What was really going on there?
Well, I think they just missed it. I mean, they all got into this governing conventional wisdom, and they were all sort of part of the system. And it was the O'Bushtons, you had the three families passing these great offices around amongst each other, and so they weren't all that severely contested elections. I never had the impression that John McCain or Mitt Romney were really all that interested in winning their elections when they ran for president. Certainly Romney had one election after the first debate, and then in a very gentlemanly manner handed it back to the president, Obama. But the press are part of it. They were part of that purblind group that never saw that if you admit 12 million unskilled people into the country without even taking their names as they enter, eventually it is going to cause a real problem. I think historians of the future will wonder what on earth the governments and the media of the time thought they were doing with this. And they completely failed to see that in absolute and relative terms, the position of the USA for the first time in its history was declining. They couldn't believe it was happening because they were part of the ruling elite. The poltroons, as you just call them, they were poltroons, but they were part of the governance of the country.
Yeah, with the big government, big media, all the bigs, big government, big media, big entertainment, big business. They all came together.
Big Wall Street, too. Yeah, that's
big Wall Street,
and they all had their noses in the same trough.
Yeah, making money, big money off of this. Hey, Conrad, may I play for you a soundbite from our mutual friend George Will, who obviously was, to put it very mildly, was pretty thoroughly disgusted by Trump and Trump's becoming the nominee. He was, Trump was the vulgarian, troglodyte, et cetera, et cetera. This is where he discusses Trump's new demeanor, or the way he seems to be considering the presidency. Let's listen.
He seems to realize inevitably that he sits atop an enormous Republican Party infrastructure. He has 4,000 policy-making jobs to fill, and they are going to come from the pool of the Republican Party, which is thoroughly conservative, and from the intellectual infrastructure of the Republican Party, AEI, other think tanks, Heritage Foundation, etc. And these are people who know what the swamp looks like that he wants to drain.
What do you make of that? I mean, there are people at AEI like Arthur Brooks, who's a smart guy, who was the Friday before the week before the election on a Friday. He was on MSNBC, Conrad, and he was giddy at the prospect of Trump's losing. I mean, really, he was like, and everyone was like, "Oh, the sage Arthur Brooks he's regaling us with the narrative of the failure of Trump," and then of course all these people were wrong. And so should Trump go back to that well of the same groups of people who have been getting so much wrong in foreign and domestic policy, economic policy, cultural policy? Doesn't he have to be pretty careful about who he brings in to drain the so-called swamp?
Yeah, I think so. You'll recall that when Reagan came in, he really recruited heavily from California and Texas. Now, he'd been the governor in California, and he knew alternate sources of occupants of the jobs George mentioned quite well. And I'm not sure that Donald does, but I am in hopes that this duo of Bannon and Priebus can get the right balance. I mean, there would be some in the AEI and Heritage and other places that George mentioned that would be in the French word recuperable, that would rally to the new system and get in line with it and not undermine it and spend their whole time sniggering that they put one over on
Conrad,
the Trumpy.
Can you give us the definition of recuperable? I mean, it's capable of being recuperated? What does that mean?
Yeah, I guess recoverable. I mean,
recoverable. You could have said that, but you said recuperable.
Rallied. Well, capable of being rallied to a new loyalty, where they had been sniggerers before they could be legitimately, they could enjoy the grace of conversion to the virtues of Trump. But you want some of those. You don't want people who just sat there like Arthur Brooks saying what a buffoon he was, being brought inside the tent now.
Well, you have such an effulgent way of putting your diction together, Conrad, that it's just, every recuperable you throw out, I'm going to throw out another word to you. How's that? You're never hebetudinous. Okay. I knew that would get a laugh. No one knows what that means except Conrad, probably. So, Conrad, let's move to foreign policy before we let you go. China is worried, which makes me happy. Stock market in the United States is just exploding. Glad my broker did not buy when I told him to. That was really nice. But what of this? This could be more peace through strength. If the economy recovers, the country's stronger, and you have more influence around the world. Correct?
Exactly. I mean, I think he's clearly going. He's got a mandate to bring in a series of tax reforms that should encourage a growth economy. I mean, one of the great fears of Hillary, apart from the triumph of political correctness, was that she was going to flatline the economy. And I think everyone sees that Donald's tax plan will be good for business, will be good for job creation, and will make America stronger in the world. He's going to cut the trade deficits. He's going to accelerate the elimination of dependence on foreign energy. And all of this makes America stronger. And I think he'll enunciate a foreign policy based on a demarcation, a little like Mr. Truman's and Dean Acheson's, although there was a slip over Korea, but where you just said what was in the American national interest to defend. And it'll be between George W.'s mindless interventionism and Obama's appeasement of America's enemies.
Oh, good. I like that. That's a great way to end. It was an interview redolent with meaning. Conrad, we should do a whole interview with just like thesaurus words, like big, like really words that nobody knows. That'll be really helpful. Conrad, it's always great to talk to you. Conrad Black here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Stay with us.
The Laura Ingraham Show.
You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. Oh, Jeff Flake congratulated Donald Trump right after the election.
Top priority, mass deportation, but obviously President-elect Trump thinks it is. No,
securing the border is our Securing the border is our top priority.
Right, but what about in year 2, year 3, year 4?
That's why I say we are not planning on erecting a deportation force. Donald Trump's not planning on that.
What about the pledge to deport millions and millions of undocumented immigrants?
What we are going to do is get the people that are criminal and have criminal records, gang members, drug dealers. We have a lot of these people, probably 2 million, it could even be 3 million. We're getting them out of our country or we're going to incarcerate. But we're getting them out of our country. They're here illegally.
Various folks from the Freedom Caucus who have been asked to run for speaker. And, I don't know what Trump is thinking about that, with whom he prefers to work on Capitol Hill. I think Priebus can work with anybody. Whether it's Paul Ryan or whether it's Jim Jordan from Ohio, he could work with anybody. So it's up to a large extent. This is up to Trump. Trump says, "Hey kids, I want Ryan in," then Ryan's going to be in. But old McConnell is a wily old dog, right? He always manages to survive these things. But there are a lot of people who are on my Twitter feed who are demanding a full barnacle scraping. Have you seen those tweets, Drew? Everybody thinks I'm being far too charitable to the ruling leadership class. I haven't even talked about it. Maybe far too charitable. People have got to chill out. They don't want to enjoy this for even a breath. Not a breath before they go on to the next fight. I do get it, but at some point, you guys, you have to take a walk in the woods and just breathe. I did that in Connecticut this weekend. Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. It was like one of those crisp fall Connecticut weekends, and I was visiting my uncle with my kids, and my friend Pam and I, we just went for this long walk. And when you walk in these state forests in Connecticut, they have the old colonial walls that are still there because it was all pasture. And so the walls, probably from the mid to late 1700s, early 1800s, incredible. These are all, of course, this is all they did. They farmed and took care of the land. But these walls go on for miles and miles, and they're still standing. Meanwhile, that junk they're throwing up in Tyson's Corner, Virginia, that stuff's going to be rotted in a few years. It's going to be rusted out and rotted. Meanwhile, these walls are made by like mules dragging them through the pastures, and they're still standing, and they're still gorgeous. So I loved it. I needed to get out of Washington and breathe. I needed to yes, I did go to TJ Maxx in Connecticut. The TJ's in Glastonbury is so good. Let me tell you, Raymond's going to attack me.
You and TJ Maxx.
I'm trying to
Has
find
there
that
ever been a TJ Maxx that you didn't visit? No, you're thinking because there's no answer. I remember being on book tour. We're in California. This is years ago. I'm going back to
Raymond
2009
Arroyo with
or
us
something.
here on the Laura Ingraham Show.
And we're driving along. We have a book event of a signing, and it's like in 40 minutes.
I needed a jog bra or something, not to get too graphic.
This is bumper-to-bumper traffic, and all of a sudden, Ingram looks over the 405, and there's
like
the
TJ
Maxx. And she's like, we got to get over. Pull over.
Raymond's going across like 3 lanes of traffic.
We have a book sign. You can't pull over. Pull over.
What did I need? I think a jog bra.
You came out with like jog bra. You came out with like 4 purses and a new pair of shoes for some cousin Pookie, or I don't know who you were buying for. But it was like This is maybe April, and she's buying Christmas presents.
Winter clothes.
Unbelievable.
Well, no, my favorite suitcase that I got there, the Ricardo suitcase that I tried to find on eBay that they don't make anymore. I'm going to buy yours from you.
I wonder why they don't make them anymore.
They're the best suitcases. Raymond, this is Raymond when he travels. He has this Mongo suit bag. It's like one of those, you know, the old suit bags you used to put over your...
We call it a duvet.
A shoulder. You know, it had the strap, and it would completely throw out your whole spinal column.
No, it's a rolling suit bag.
Yeah, so Raymond got one of the roller suit bags. That is not meant for the overhead compartment, and every time you travel with Raymond, especially at LAX, the women there are the suitcase Nazis. They look at that suitcase and they size it up every time. No, Mr. Arroyo. They even know you by now.
All right.
Oh, no, you have to check that bag.
All
you have to
those
check
Sky
that
Valet
bag.
people.
Oh,
Who
no,
are
no.
they?
Who are the Sky
that
Valet?
Sky Force?
For whom do they work, these Sky Valet people?
I don't know. I think they're just freelancers who
Oh,
just
no.
there
And
to harass.
Raymond gets into a soliloquy. He pronounces about, I'm the fly every week. I've flown around the country in this bag.
Oh, it fits. It fits. Look,
fits
put it. If I
you,
could make it to that little fitter, you would see.
Then he tries to shove it into the little thing. If your bag doesn't fit in here, it doesn't get in the overhead. The bag's tag doesn't fit in there, okay? That bag is huge.
No, I'm like a kid on a trampoline jumping on the bag to get it to go in the thing.
Somehow, you always get that darn bag.
Get on. I've had good luck.
You've always gotten that bag, and oh my gosh, it was hilarious.
Well.
All right, we have people calling in about Conrad Black's diction. Let's go.
Conrad Black's diction?
Well, what else are we going to talk about? The Trump interview? We could. Oh, Mary Matlin and Van Jones. We're gonna get to that. Raymond was texting me about that before I even saw it, so I had to watch it online. Ed in Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, did not smarten up and go for Trump. And Ed, I'm going to hold you responsible for the entire Commonwealth. Go ahead.
Laura, please don't hold me responsible because I have been embarrassed about the Commonwealth and its actions ever since Governor McAuliffe was elected governor of the Commonwealth. And I'll be so glad when he's out of office. You just won't believe. But what I had to tell you is that I loved your interview a while ago. It reminded me so much of the days when we could hear one of my heroes, William F. Buckley. And I said, I've got to call Laura and tell her that it's the next best thing to listening to William F. Buckley. And if give me just one more second, I've got something for Raymond Arroyo.
Okay, wait a second.
Uh-oh.
Raymond's here. Go ahead.
Raymond, I'll remember watching EWTN a number of years ago. There was an election coming, and Mother was seated there in her studio audience, and she was giving them what for. She said, now let me tell all you Catholics something. She said, when you go to the polls and vote, she said, forget about union membership and forget about all this other stuff that gets you in the Democratic column. She says, you go in there and you think about your Catholic traditions and principles, and you know before you go in whether they are right to life or not. And
vote for life.
Vote for conscience.
That's what she did say.
Oh, in contrary, I would say, Ed, to a lot of these bishops, Raymond, and a lot of the.
Now you're trying to get me into trouble, Ingram. I can see the eyebrow raising like a Disney villain at the moment when you say there are these bishops.
I
see it. Cue the music
on the take.
They're meeting today, actually, in Baltimore.
Really?
You'll hear nothing about it.
Are they
no
meeting
news
about?
at all.
Are they meeting about how to figure out how to denounce Donald Trump? I mean, what's the meeting from the bishops?
I think they're just trying to figure out how to survive. I mean, look, some of these men are holy and really good, wonderful guys, and speak out forcefully at great cost.
Yeah.
There are others who are politicians, but this is the nature of the whole thing from the beginning of time. People tell me, aren't you upset? Jesus handpicked 12 guys. 11 of them walked out on him, okay? Mm-hmm. One stayed around during the rough times. That's what you're going to get. 1 in 12 are going to be worth a damn. So that's what I think is happening there. We'll see. The bishops are going to have a tough time in the age of Pope Francis finding common ground with Donald Trump. And as I told you back in March when I traveled to these primary states on book tour, the people were telling me, evangelicals and Catholics, I'm supporting Trump because everybody was scratching their heads. Why are they supporting Donald Trump? And they told me I'm supporting Trump because he's a check on my church's forays into politics. We don't think the church should be involved in politics, they told me, in immigration and in the green debate and climate change. So when you look at it that way, you realize there's a real tension among the people.
Aren't they supposed to be saving souls, not saving trees?
Well, but again, Pope Francis has put an emphasis on creation as a whole. You love life? Well, that's part of God's whole creation, so you have to love it all and protect it all.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I like the John Paul II.
John Paul II. You're like Corinthians the two. Okay, good. So did you write that in earlier? 2 Corinthians. John Paul II. Next, it'll be John Paul the II.
Let me just say that I got 2.5 or 3 hours of sleep.
Intimate with your Polish brethren. John Paul II. Oh, that's good. Mm-hmm.
I meant to
showing the depth of your Catholic understanding. Wonderful.
Well, I only joined the church recently.
There we go.
Oh my God, I can't
That's
even
funny.
speak. So, as I was saying, the Pope said today that communists and Christians have a lot in common. What's that,
well,
Raymond?
What
is he saying we all have in common?
How did this turn into the Pope report?
I
was
don't
here
know,
just
but
to talk
I
about
want to
other
hear
matters.
about your...
The Pope did an interview with a 90-year-old atheist who doesn't take notes, but he's repeatedly talked to this guy and made headlines all over the world. He's an Italian journalist. He told this guy, Scalfari, this weekend that communists think like Christians. The quote was, "It is communists who think like Christians." And his idea was that they don't care about themselves. They just want to give to everyone and make sure everyone's taken care of. It kind of shows a big blind spot
when they're not bulldozing them into pits.
Right.
Yeah.
When they're not shooting your cardinals and rounding them up and burning churches. Yeah.
Exactly. When they're not imprisoning people for their political views, they're just like Christians.
I'm just quoting.
Now, Raymond, this is when this happens with Pope Francis, we frequently hear it was a bad translation.
Yeah, no, that's always.
It is wrong translation. We always hear it's the bad translation. Is this a bad translation?
No, it's not a bad translation. I think the Pope has repeatedly talked to this man. The Vatican came out and said, "Oh, he doesn't take notes and he's 90 years old and he's an atheist."
Why are we talking to this man?
Well, exactly. But the Pope keeps going back to him.
Why?
Because he reads the paper at La Repubblica. He likes the guy's point of view. So they have something in tandem. And the fact is, I think you can't say it didn't exist. It never was said. You take it at face value and you say, okay, the Pope, this is just his personal opinion, and this is what it is.
Well, when I saw that, I was...
So it's not my job or yours to try to explain things away. It's just you quote the Pope accurately, which I have just now, and you let the people figure this out, I think, and the church figure it out.
And a lot of people are emailing in about speculation about yours truly and working in a Trump administration. And here's what I have to say about that.
And has, to my mind, retracted your white lash with what you just said. No, that we have to not focus totally on the toxic stuff. But you should, and if you don't, you're wrong. That's not the path for progressives. We've all agreed at the outset of this show that the path is to go back to the Rust Belt and the rednecks. Well, you're not going to get there with climate change and Putin and all the rest of what you're talking about.
Well, I said, and I stand by it, I said that race was a part, and there was a part, that alt-right part, there was a part of a white lash. And if you listen to the whole quote, you would agree with what I said. So I don't take that back.
I did listen to it. Again, you said, what do I tell the kids? What I would tell your kids, I'm a black man in America who went to Yale, who's written books, who served as president, now has
I'm a ninth generation
culture. But man, Mary Matlin going back home with her husband's, of course, from Louisiana, going back to New Orleans. She's really fit in well down there. She can't wait to get the heck out of Washington.
I know,
she was in Washington for 24 hours. She's like, I got to get out of this town. It's just, I got to get back to New Orleans.
Yeah, but can you imagine the reception she got when she got home?
What do you mean?
Mary, why'd you say that? Why'd you say all that about Van Jones? Van Jones is a perfectly good guy. Why the hell are you saying all that?
It's a white lash.
Now we're not going to be able to get invited to any of them parties over at Van's house, and I like the way he lays out all that, you know, the chocolate, the fountains there. I like that, and I love the fondue he's got over there.
Give me that crawfish.
It's terrible. You ruined the whole week. Just don't even talk to me, Mary. I'm going upstairs. I'm going to look at the stats, and the Saints lost. I'm going to go shoot myself.
The Saints did lose.
They did lose. I was about to shoot myself.
Did LSU lose, or did they have a bye, or you don't even know? Oh, Drew
I don't
doesn't
watch.
know.
I don't.
They lost.
Them.
One. Okay. Jane.
Oh, they
Jane
won.
knows all the scores. Then he's okay.
James will be half
bipolar.
Happy.
Yeah, he'll be half in, half out. But I digress because these white lash comments by Van Jones are among the more, they're just ridiculous. I mean, honestly, you lost. And he got more of the black and Hispanic vote than Romney got. After all of the media attacks and the hits, he still got more. Now, what does that tell Van Jones? Well, apparently not that much.
I'm a ninth-generation American, and so we have not escaped because I went to Yale.
You should
all
not
the problems
be a
of this
racial
country.
polemicist.
And I'm not,
you should be a racial reconciler.
You should be ashamed of yourself to say that to me to my face. I've spent more time in this country.
Would I say it behind your back would be better?
Listen, hold on a second. I spent more time than you have trying to be a racial reconciler in this country.
Really? How do you know that? Do you know anything about me?
Well, you apparently don't know anything about me. And
yes, I do know. Your daddy, your grandparents were teachers. Your grandfather was a bishop.
Whoa! She just went down the whole road. How did she did her?
Mary did her research.
She did her.
Well, I have to say, in her defense, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in New Orleans around the Carvels. They have there is not a more multicultural house on uptown than theirs. I mean, they're close to Donna Brazile and black leaders, white leaders. I mean, they actually are part of the. I would argue they are part of the racial healing, and the whole New Orleans scene is part of that. We don't distinguish by race the way so many other parts of the country do. It's our gumbo is reliant on one another.
Yeah,
and there's a real
the flavor.
Look, I'm moving toward promoting my Christmas time in New Orleans.
That's
special.
Christmas.
Look at this.
When is that airing, by the way?
Right after Thanksgiving. We'll come. I'm going to play
we'll talk about
clips.
it.
We'll talk
All right,
about
great.
it.
We're going to take a break. 855-40-LAURA. Sean Spicer is also going to join us, communications director for the RNC. Who will become head of the RNC when Reince leaves?
Oh, really?
I was hearing that. No, I said who will. Who? Oh, I see. You thought I meant who will.
I thought he will become.
No, I'm saying who will. It's a question,
you're asking
Raymond.
a question.
I needed a better inflection at the end of the.
See, this is what I'm here to help.
Yeah, I heard Corey Lewandowski wanted that job. I heard that. He's a young guy. No, not that young to have it. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. We'll talk to Sean Spicer, and also we have a great segment coming up about the power and greatness of adoption. This is National Adoption Month. Don't go away.
Parameters, Newt, that you can share with us in terms of what the priorities are for President-elect Trump's administration?
He's going to want people who are change agents. He's going to want people who are prepared to take on the Washington establishment. He's going to want people who are committed to draining the swamp, as he put it in the campaign. I think what he doesn't want is go along to get along, traditional work with the bureaucracy, become a K Street lobbyist insider kind of personalities.
I love alt-right. It's another phony moniker, and they use it to paint a broad brush with any conservative who has a point of view that's valid. And they just, that's alt-right. Well, how about you're far left? We'll just stick with far left for you. Alt-right. Control Alt Delete you. Okay, I'll reset the whole country right now. We're going to Control Alt Delete you. Alt-right. And Craig Shirley was like, they're alt-left. But I hate the whole thing. Who came up with that dumb alt-right? It's so stupid. These are the same people. Again, I tweeted this out after the election. Why should we listen to post-election analysis, and Raymond, you can chime in, from all of these people who were wrong for 2 years pre-election?
Yeah, it does sort of, I mean,
it's odd. All these people were wrong, and they're going on and on. We're going to talk to Sean Spicer in a minute.
No, you wonder what insight are they going to provide? They misled everybody for 2 years because they didn't talk to the voters.
Right.
I mean, I've said this forever. You learn a lot when, look, I changed my opinion back in March, though, by talking to the primary voters. But just being part of the caravan and shooting from the press deck, the candidate, that does not make you an embedded journalist. It does not make you an understanding journalist. And the fact that so many people missed it, pollsters, journalists, editorial writers, but why are they being invited on these shows? Why don't they find the handful of people, and there are a few of them, who got it right, and figure out what can we add to our coverage that will help broaden it and help us understand now the majority of the country who voted in this new president.
How about that Obama has lost, I think, 11 Senate seats since he became president? 11 have flipped to Republicans.
Yeah, no, those are staggering.
The numbers are staggering. Oh, 13.
Historic lows.
Lucky 13 he's lost, Drew says. 14 governorships. Whoops. But at least he and Michelle had a lot of fun parties. At least Paul McCartney came and Stevie Wonder and the Clooneys, and they did have a lot of fun parties. Remember those poetry slams they used to do, Raymond, at the White House?
I'm not going. I said it before. I mean, you may not have liked the programming, but the Obamas knew how to use the White House as a cultural platform to put forward their worldview.
Yeah, they did.
And they shifted the culture.
Oh, he won
Hamilton
re-election.
and other things were the result of the Obamas.
Yeah. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us, Sean Spicer, who was just relentless and just so vigorous in his advocacy on behalf of conservative ideas, and of course was fantastic for Trump when so many people were just they treated Trump like he was hazardous waste, like they had to wear one of those bubble suits. They want to talk about Trump. But Spicer has always been so great, and we're just delighted he's with us, communications director for the RNC. Sean, how are you? Good to talk to you.
I'm great. Thank you, Raymond. You guys, both of you, for having me. I appreciate the kind words, Laura.
And Sean, what about you? What's happening with you now that Reince is leaving to go head up the White House Chief of Staff position? What about you? Are you going to join him? Are you going to leave the RNC? What's next for you?
I, honest to God, don't know the answer to that question. I've been doing this for 6 years. I've been honored to serve Reince in the last, year or so, doing what I can to help this presidential cycle and our team win up and down the ballot. And so, we'll see. Reince's term goes through January here. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to continue doing my job, and then we'll see what if I can be of help to either Chairman Priebus or Mr. Trump, then I'd be honored to do that. But I'll keep fighting for while I've got this job for as long as I can for our party and what we've done up and down the ticket.
Well, if certain individuals came to you and said, we need you to head the RNC, would you consider that?
I'll give you the answer that I think most people would give, which is if the president-elect of the United States, or in the case Reince Priebus, asked me to do almost anything right now, it would be hard to say no to someone who you've really believe in and know that will do a great job. So I don't. I think the answer is, there's really very few things that I wouldn't do to help them be successful.
Mm-hmm. And Sean, there are so many conservatives who were apoplectic when folks were considering Reince Priebus over in the Trump organization on the transition for chief of staff. What can you say to those conservatives, and you know who they are, who were basically saying, well, wait a second, Trump's going back to the RNC. That really, represents Washington and the Washington mindset. Why would you go to the RNC? And I was not one of those people, of course, but there were a lot of people who were saying that.
And I've heard that. Yeah. But I know you and Raymond have both, talked to Reince several times over the last 6 years of his chairmanship, and understand that Reince has been talking about that his job was to build an infrastructure. He had a vision that said, I want to build a permanent ground game. I want to build a data and digital operation. And then when we have a nominee, no matter who it is, we're going to create a set of playing, rules for how to get the nomination. Whoever wins it will fight like heck to get them elected. And he did exactly that. And I think the only thing, so to your question, what would I tell people? I would say, listen to what the president-elect said about Chairman Reince Priebus. He said there is no one better, that he fights like heck, that no one worked harder than him. And that's what the president-elect and the vice president-elect saw in Reince Priebus, and somebody who is tireless, who has a vision and knows how to implement stuff, who brings people together, who share a common goal. And he said it 4 years ago. He had dealt with a lot of criticism about how he was going to spend the party's money. He raised a historic amount. He did exactly what he was going to say he was going to do. And he took a lot of arrows along the way. And it wasn't just the Trump presidency. But if you look at where we did up and down the ballot, and you and Raymond were just talking about this, but the number, we are the potential right now, we have 33 governors. and 2 that are still out. If we hit 34, that'll be the largest amount of governors that any party's ever had. I mean, we flipped the Kentucky State House for the first time in 100 years, defeated the Speaker of the House there. There are so many successes up and down the ballot, and it's because I think our party, unlike the Democrats, focused on building something that benefited everybody who put an R next to their name. And then you combine that with Donald Trump's movement and message, and we were an unstoppable force. So my point would be, look, the president-elect of the United States believes that this chairman, in his actions and his successes, is the right person to help him enact his policies. And so if you believe in Donald Trump and believe in the message that he and Mike Pence talked about, then understand that what Reince Priebus showed him was somebody who goes in there and works tirelessly.
Well, it's not hold on, Sean, but it's not the concern is that he would be a backdoor for McConnell and people like Jeff Flake and John McCain to have outsized influence in the West Wing.
Right. No, that's yeah. And I think that, again, what President-elect Trump recognizes is that people from all sides, Reince came up through the grassroots in the Tea Party in Wisconsin. He's someone who, attended rallies and spoke out and then wanted to get inside the system to make the Republican Party more grassroots oriented. And I think that what Reince has shown over his last 6 years is that he wants to enact conservative values and principles and get more Republicans elected. And so, if you have an R next to your name, he wants to work with you to enact social and fiscal policies. And I think that Trump saw that. And so I would argue that it's not about one particular person. It's taking the Trump agenda, and it's very clear what that agenda is and what those policies are, and saying, I need to get these through Congress to make this country better. So I need someone who can navigate Washington and who knows get the right people to do the right things to make the country better.
And Sean, we're talking to Sean Spicer, who's headed up communications over at the RNC. You've been there for 6 years? Is that right? All 6 years?
Yeah.
That's hard to believe, Sean. Oh my gosh.
All 6 years.
That's scary. It's gone by really fast. I would have, if you told me 4 years, I would have said absolutely three years. So when you say when the Trump agenda, just to go back on this, because again, I want to address the concerns of my listeners who are my constituents. When we go back to 2013, and it's the 100-page autopsy of the GOP, and Priebus headed up that effort, part of that report was, and a lot of the stuff was actually really made sense, and it was talked about outreach and having better outreach, having a better message for women, and I think all of that was fine. But it was very critical of Mitt Romney's self-deportation comments, and of course was embracing and championing comprehensive immigration reform as part of the autopsy as to why Romney lost. I assume that is not, in your mind, what Priebus will be advocating for in the West Wing.
Well, number one, his job is to advocate for Donald Trump's agenda, full stop.
So the autopsy's out the window then, right? The autopsy's
No, but again, I think that look, just to be clear, it was 118 pages, and as you said, largely talked about party mechanics, where we should invest our money, how we should deploy our staff, the priorities of a party in terms of mechanics and infrastructure was 99% of that. And I think that's exactly what the chairman focused on, and he did. And I think, to be clear, in the White House, his job as chief of staff will be 100% to figure out, how do I take the ideas and vision that Donald Trump has and talked about on the campaign trail and make it a reality. And he works for Donald Trump to make sure Donald Trump's agenda, solutions, and policies get enacted. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, Reince came on the show when this came out, and we went back and forth on it. But, winning changes everything. I mean, Trump won. So the autopsy is the digital stuff that you guys did, I think, was implemented, and the policy agenda is not the autopsy. There's an autopsy now for the autopsy. That's my point. I mean, except for the digital and the common sense, I think, provisions, I think that's what's stuck in people's craw. And we got a lot of comments on Facebook and on Twitter about it. And I think we needed to ask that question. So I think you addressed that. Sean, as this process goes forward, and Republicans, I hope, all of them, and not just in word, but indeed support the goals of this administration. They'll be back and forth on policies. What one thing do you think could be done in the future even better as far as messaging? You're a communications guy, and Raymond and I were talking about this before. We We didn't see a lot of great ads, even by third-party groups this time. They were okay, but there was a lot of chop job ads. They didn't seem to tell the story of America's decline and America's new hope in Trump. Would you recommend anything new on that front, even though maybe ads weren't as important, of course, for Donald Trump, but for most candidates they still matter somewhat.
Right.
What did we learn from that?
I think the one big takeaway that at least I've believed in and continue to believe in is that we have, and Donald Trump epitomizes this, is that we have the ability to bypass the media, especially with social media now, whether it's on straight digital emails or going through different filters, Twitter, Facebook, Google, and having a conversation with individuals, as opposed to trying to go big and saying, let's put an ad out that just goes up on television and hope that people watch it. And I think that the Trump team, working with the RNC, really was able to make huge advances in digital to talk specifically to voters about their specific concerns and issues. And I think that's one thing that I think candidates really need to start to understand, is that the tools are now available to have much more specific conversations with folks, as opposed to trying to figure out, how do I raise enough money to do, 1,000, 2,000 points in my media market. And I think people, if you look at where I think a lot of the media got it wrong, was they got wrapped up in this, DC, New York media mentality of, well, we know better. And I think that the average voter out there was having a very, very different conversation online with their friends and in person. So I think understanding that dynamic is extremely important going forward.
Sean Spicer, Communications Director for the RNC. Sean, it's great to have you on. Thanks for your perspective. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. It turns out that Saturday Night Live is still not funny when we come back. Maybe, is that Amy Schumer? Or maybe she could be welcomed by all the Muslims now and making their way through Spain. I'm sure they'll greet her very warmly.